They said an angel was placed before the gates of Eden to keep us away. A guardian of fire, punishing those who fell. But what if this story had never been true? What if the angel with the flaming sword wasn't humanity's enemy, but its protector? For millennia, we have feared the one who, in truth, guarded the only way back home. The truth was hidden, buried by religion and time. Because this angel didn't block Eden, he preserved it. And today, you will remember what humanity should never have forgotten. Have you ever wondered what really happened after Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden? The story we all know says that an angel was placed before the gate, wielding a flaming sword, to prevent man from returning to paradise. A stern guardian, a symbol of divine punishment, of the fall, and of the separation between God and humanity. But what if this version didn't tell the whole story? What if, amidst the flames and fear, there was a forgotten secret? Something that would completely change how we understand Eden, the angel, and even human destiny itself. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear might challenge everything you've been taught about good, evil, and the purpose of the soul. For centuries, the image of angel with a flaming sword, it was used to represent punishment, exclusion, the price of disobedience. A symbol of the closed gate, of the lost path. But there is something curious in the ancient scriptures, a detail that almost no one notices. The original text of Genesis does not say that the angel was placed to prevent man. It says that the angel was placed to guard the path, to keep, not to block. To protect, not to expel. And that's where the story changes completely. Think about it. Why would a God who creates with love place a guardian only to deny return? What if the true role of this angel was different? Not to close the gate, but to preserve the path until humanity was ready to return. A path not physical, but spiritual. The path of awakening. Have you ever felt that something inside you still remembers a perfect place, even though you've never been there? A distant echo of peace, a nameless longing, a light that the modern world seems to have extinguished? Perhaps that's Eden trying to call you back. Perhaps the gate never disappeared, we just stopped seeing it. In ancient mystical texts, the fire from this angel's sword is not described as destruction, but as conscious light, the fire that burns away what is false, to reveal what is true. The fire that awakens. The fire that purifies. The cherub before Eden would not, then, be an enemy, but the ultimate guardian of human awakening. The protector of the divine spark dormant within each of us. What you are about to discover may surprise you. There are forgotten manuscripts, Gnostic interpretations, and ancient traditions that speak of this angel as a messenger of wisdom, a being of compassion who watches over the soul until it remembers who it truly is. He doesn't guard the gate to keep people away. He guards it until the inner traveler is ready to cross. Perhaps Eden was never a place we lost, but a state of consciousness we forgot. And the angel, that being of fire and light, remains there before the entrance to our own heart, waiting for the moment when we will see him again, not as judge, but as guide. So the question is, are we really out of Eden, or just sleeping by the gate? What follows will reveal the true identity of that angel, the hidden meaning of the fiery sword, and what all of this has to do with the awakening of the human soul. Prepare yourself, because the story that begins now is one of the oldest and most hidden in creation. But before we delve any deeper into this mystery, take a moment to breathe. Because perhaps at some point in your life, you too have felt that calling, that feeling that there is something beyond what the world shows. A place from which we came and to which somehow we still want to return. If this topic touches something deep within you, if this story resonates with something you've ever felt, write it in the comments below. Tell us what has touched you the most so far, what you believe about Eden, about angels, about the awakening of the soul. It may seem like just a comment. But, in fact, every word you leave here helps build this community of seekers, people who, just like you, are trying to remember who they really are. If this message resonates with you, leave a like now. It seems simple, but each like makes that voice resonate further. YouTube understands that this content matters. And that's what allows this message to reach other people who might need to hear exactly what you're hearing right now. And of course, if you feel that this type of reflection speaks to your soul, subscribe here. Echoes of Eden. This channel was created for this purpose, to rescue what time has erased to unite mythology, spirituality, and occult philosophy in a human, poetic, and truthful way. Each new registration is like a spark ignited, a new light that helps keep this space of seeking and awareness alive. So comment, like, subscribe, not just for me, but for everything we still need to awaken together. Because deep down, that's what the angel at the gate always hoped for. That we would return not alone, but as humanity. And while you do that, let the flame continue to burn, because what comes next will reveal who it really is, the gatekeeper. And why his sword was never a weapon, but an invitation to cross the fire and rediscover the light. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the true meaning of the angel guarding the gate of Eden goes far beyond the image that traditional religions have shown us. There is a subtle but powerful difference between preventing and protecting. And it is in this difference that one of the oldest and most liberating truths about the human journey is hidden. In the original text of Genesis, when it says that the angel was placed to guard the way, the Hebrew word used is shamar. This term does not mean to close, block, or expel. It means to care for, watch over, protect. The angel was not placed there as a celestial executioner. He was placed as the guardian of something sacred, the way back. The path that is not made of steps, but of awareness. The path that begins within. Imagine a gate made not of iron or stone, but of light. It does not open with force, but with understanding. The fire of the angel's sword is not a fire of destruction. It is a fire that reveals. When the flame touches, it does not burn what is true. It burns only what is illusion. Pride, fear, forgetfulness. Everything that man has created to hide from himself. For centuries, we have interpreted this fire as punishment. But what if it is, in fact, an invitation to transformation? Every time life places you before the fire, a loss, a pain, a moment when everything seems to crumble, perhaps it is the angel calling you back. The fire, in this sense, does not come to destroy what you are, but to dissolve what you no longer need to be. Think about how many times you've faced something that seemed like the end, only to realize it was just the beginning of a new part of your journey. How many times has the fire of difficulty shown you something that was hidden, something essential, that you could only see when everything else burned away? That is the fire of the angel, the same fire that guarded Eden, also guarding the awakening of the human soul. This symbolism appears in many ancient traditions, not just the Bible. In Egypt, there was talk of the fire of Ra, which purifies the spirit before ascension. In Greek Orpheism, fire was the element that separated the common man from the initiate. And in Gnostic texts, the angel with the flaming sword represents the divine consciousness that protects the inner portal, the portal of the awakened heart. It's curious how different cultures, separated by time and geography, point to the same idea. There is a passage between what we are and what we can be, and this passage is made of light and fire. When we look at the angel of Eden from this perspective, he ceases to be a symbol of loss and becomes a symbol of promise. He is not there to punish, but to ensure that the path back is never corrupted. The angel is the guardian of the purity of the journey. He is the point between the human and the divine, the mediator who ensures that no one crosses the gate with a still asleep heart. Perhaps that's why so many of us feel this incessant search for meaning. The soul remembers. Even without understanding why, we feel that something is being kept, a return that needs to happen. And deep down, this memory is the guardian's call. He doesn't shout, he doesn't impose, he just waits. The angel remains there, patiently, until each of us is ready to cross the fire. There is something profoundly human in this, the fear of what purifies. How many times do we run from what could liberate us? How many times do we call punishment that which has come to awaken us? The mind fears the fire, but the soul recognizes it. Because fire is the language of truth. It speaks through crises, revelations, inevitable changes. It is the instrument that separates appearance from essence. And the most impressive thing is realizing that this angel never left us. He didn't just stay in Eden, like a lost figure in mythology. He is present in every moment when something inside you prevents you from moving forward without first looking inward. He is in the decisions that require courage, in the hidden truths that insist on coming to light, in the consciousness that asks to awaken. The guardian is not external. He is the reflection of your own soul protecting what is sacred within you. When you feel the call to change, to break patterns, to seek something beyond the visible. It is the same angel who touches you with his fiery sword. He says, "Before entering, burn what is not yours. Let the old die so that the new may be born." That is why the way back is not an easy one, but it is the only one that leads to the light. With each step on this journey, the fire purifies you and the gate becomes less distant. The angel watches silently, not as a judge, but as a witness to your transformation. He knows that Eden is not behind you, but ahead of you, awaiting the moment when your soul finally remembers what it is made of. Now I want to delve even deeper into this revelation, because understanding who this guardian truly is changes everything we think about the fall, about the divine, and about the destiny of humanity. But before crossing that next portal, tell me one thing. Comment below. I recognize the fire. If there is one point where many texts converge, it is this. Fire is not merely flame, it is consciousness. When we read the biblical passage about the angel and the flaming sword, we tend to imagine punishment. But behind the scenes of ancient traditions, another interpretation emerges. In Genesis, fire marks the boundary between forgetfulness and remembrance. In the Zohar, fire is condensed light. It is the brilliance that reveals the true form of things when the mind is aligned with the divine. In Gnostic writings, the flame is called living knowledge, a kind of lucidity that pierces veils and reshapes decisions. And in desert wisdom currents, the fire of the blade is the line that separates raw desire from pure intention. All of this points to a hidden truth that can have a real impact. Only those who awaken can cross over and not be burned. Notice how this logic operates within us. When you go through a crisis, what is not essential vanishes into thin air. What remains is the inner structure, the core of what you believe. The fire of consciousness works like this. It burns the lie we tell ourselves. It leaves intact the part that doesn't negotiate with the soul. It's not about punishment, it's about transformation. That's why so many people confuse purification with loss. It's not loss, it's refinement. It's the journey of leaving the noise and returning to clear sound. And this return requires choices. The scriptures, read through the lens of the heart, have always spoken of decisions. Each step a small crossing. Each crossing a revelation. The sword is the gesture of cutting away the unnecessary, and the angel is the certainty that there is a safe path when the intention is true. Think of the Hebrew symbol for fire, esh, vibrating between matter and spirit. The Zohar suggests that light is not just brightness, it is understanding. When the mind aligns with this light, reality reveals layers that were previously invisible. This is not distant mysticism, it is inner practice. It is you observing your own impulses, calibrating thoughts, refining feelings, adjusting the inner posture that precedes any action. The ancient school of wisdom always linked awareness to responsibility. The blade of fire demands attention to what moves you. The journey is not measured in kilometers, but in sincerity. That is why the gate of Eden does not open for haste, nor for pride. It opens for those who accept facing themselves. In the apocryphal Gospels, the image of the flame as knowledge returns in simple parables. Lit lamps, essential oil, vigilance of the heart. This is no coincidence. Fire is a universal language for speaking of lucidity. Desert sages, monks who endured freezing nights, mystics who remained silent for years, all repeat the same idea. Whoever finds the light does not protect themselves from it, they let it reveal everything. It is uncomfortable at first because it exposes what lies behind the scenes. Attachments, contradictions, the narratives we invent to justify the sleep of the soul. But it is precisely there that the angel acts. He does not attack, he illuminates. He does not threaten, he shows. The sword does not descend to wound. It draws a line of clarity. From here inward, truth. From here outward, illusion. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the transformative question isn't, where is the gate? But at what point did my consciousness stop walking? Eden, understood as a state, is not a trophy, it's direction. And direction isn't demanding of those who err. It's demanding of those who insist on not seeing. A learner's mentality makes the path malleable. A defensive mentality makes it rigid, full of sharp angles. That's why some people go through such difficult episodes and yet emerge with a new serenity. They weren't spared the fire, they were taught by it. By accepting the heat, they found within themselves a secret chamber, where the sword doesn't separate people from God, but masks from the face. The Zohar often speaks of degrees of light, as if reality were a ladder where each step is a measure of perception. The Bible, when dealing with the patience it demands, does not exalt perfect heroes. It reveals humans in process. Gnostic texts, with their boldness, remind us that the spark has always been within, and that forgetfulness is the true exile. If we weave these voices together, the picture becomes clear. The angel at the door is not a jailer, but a sign that return demands integrity. The flame does not accept dead weight. Whoever enters, enters light. This is the great revelation hidden in plain sight. We were not banished from the light. We simply carry so much weight that we cannot cross the threshold of clarity. The work is to let go. This reading does not negate the moral meaning of ancient stories. It deepens it. Instead of fear, it calls for radical responsibility. Instead of guilt, it calls for spiritual maturity. The sword of fire demands an honest question. What within me is already ready to be transformed? What within me insists on maintaining a plot that no longer serves its purpose? There are small, seemingly banal decisions that alter the entire inner configuration. The way you talk to yourself, the way you observe dense emotions without becoming confused by them, the way you choose a hidden truth instead of a quick advantage. Each of these choices creates garments of light, a recurring metaphor for the subtle body that passes through the gate. If you look closely, you'll see that this architecture is spread across symbols that have always been within reach. The tree that ignites in the desert, the altar that consumes the ashless offering, the pillar of fire that guides in the dark night, the vision of lips touched by embers, all narrate the same dynamic. Light ignites what is alive and extinguishes what is shadow. The impact is silent but definitive. Those who taste this flame begin to perceive changes in their own language, in the rhythm of their minds, in the pattern of their relationships. The journey ceases to be a race and becomes a crossing. The heart learns not to engage in wars that only fuel noise. And little by little, something aligns itself within, as if the angel were repositioning the compass. Perhaps the most beautiful image lies in the accounts where the fire does not consume the bush. As if reality were saying, the presence you fear did not come to destroy your form, but to reveal your origin. The angel at the gate of Eden represents this divine pedagogy. He guards the path so that the passage is never profaned by shallow intentions. It is not exclusion, it is care. It is not a barrier, it is a criterion. The flame is a filter of meaning. And every time we accept the filter, we advance a millimeter towards the house. If upon hearing all this, a part of you recognizes the call, it's not imagination. It's memory. The memory of when life seemed whole. The memory of the moment when truth didn't need defending because it stood on its own. This memory is an ancient password. It cannot be forced, it must be guarded. And the guardian, the one whom many have feared for centuries, continues to fulfill the same role. To watch over this return, to protect the sacred clearing where the soul becomes simple and lucid again. Some call it awakening, some call it conversion, some call it healing. The names vary. The experience is the same, to cross the fire and remain. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding what the sword reveals about us changes the way we think about our daily choices and repositions the path of consciousness without the noise of guilt. And as we continue, tell me in just one word, comment below, I choose the light. When we ask, who is the cherub guarding the gate? We enter a territory where names cease to be mere labels and become spiritual functions. Ancient traditions treated names as maps. Each one pointed to a route of consciousness. Among these maps, three shine brightly: Raziel, Cadmiel, and Uriel. Not as figures to collect, but as modes of presence that educate the soul. It is said of Raziel that he whispers God's secrets to men, like one who restores memory to the forgotten. This image, besides being poetic, speaks of mentality. Before any crossing, listening must awaken. It is Raziel who brings the hidden truth closer, who disarms the anxiety for answers and opens space for a finer perception. The inner sensation is simple. A noise gives way to a calm understanding. You don't force your way through, you understand the password. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when read as a gesture and not as a character, Raziel becomes a lesson in gentleness. He doesn't shout, he doesn't demand a spectacle. He lights a small lamp in the back of the room and lets the eyes adjust. In practical terms, it's that moment when you perceive a pattern that was causing you suffering and, for the first time, you can choose a different response. It's not magic, it's transformation. Raziel symbolizes the moment when the decision ceases to be reactive and becomes conscious. The impact is silent, but decisive. You choose without violence, and precisely for that reason the choice holds up. There, the flaming sword seems like a fiery pen writing new lines in your destiny, aligning intentions and actions, stitching together what previously seemed chaotic backstage areas. Cadmiel, in turn, guards the path like one who supports a bridge in the wind. It matters little whether philology finds it in lists or rare manuscripts. What matters is the function, fidelity. Cadmiel reminds us that returning to Eden is a journey, not a theatrical leap. He teaches the dignity of the process, the patience that gives form to the invisible. He is the hand that protects the flame when the night thickens, the gentle discipline of routines that consolidate the vision. Watching over thoughts, refining feelings, making precise the small attitudes that, together, change a destiny. Without this firmness, revelation fades. With it, consciousness is established. The gate is not a revolving door. It is a threshold that recognizes coherence. In Cadmiel, decisions cease to be calendar promises and become embodied commitment, a body that confirms what the mouth has declared. And then Uriel, the light that deciphers. In ancient narratives, Uriel appears in moments when it's necessary to interpret signs, to read the world as a living text. He redraws the scenery so that the passage reveals itself. The blade in his hand is a ruler of integrity. It separates reflection from light, appearance from essence. It is Uriel who makes you see the structure behind the plot, the real motive, the hidden intention, the mechanism that sustains repetition. When Uriel lights up, questions change. Instead of "what do I gain?" "what is true?" arises. This change of mindset reconfigures priorities and shatters illusions with firm sweetness. The crossing becomes clear because the labyrinth loses false walls. And the curious thing is that, with Uriel, courage seems tranquil. There is no performative heroism. There is clarity. You walk because it is clear. If we unite these three aspects, Raziel, listening and wisdom, Cadmiel, fidelity and process, and Uriel, clarity and reading, the cherub takes on a human and compassionate form. He doesn't obstruct, he educates. He doesn't complicate, he simplifies. He is the presence that protects the passage so that the return is not profaned by haste, pride, or self-deception. In the language of journey, it's as if the angel were watching over your axis so that the crossing doesn't break you in two. And this appears in everyday life in discreet ways. A spoken no to a habit that diminishes you. A serene yes to what demands work and honor. A conversation in which you choose the truth without aggression. Each microdecision repositions the body on the path. That's how the invisible becomes concrete. Some ask where pain fits into this process. Pain is the warmth of adjustment. When life gets tough, it's not a sign of abandonment, it's a sign of refinement. The angel's fire doesn't burn what is true, it burns the shell. It's the discomfort of letting go of a character that no longer serves, the mourning for narratives that kept us safe, the strangeness of living without old crutches. But soon after comes a clean relief, like breathable space. The heart, less heavy, recognizes passages that previously seemed like walls. The hidden truth appears, and with it, a freedom that is independent of circumstances. It's not triumphalism, it's maturity. The gate recognizes those who arrive light. If you observe carefully, you will notice how traditions converge. The Bible speaks of vigilance and oil in lamps. The Zohar insists on the gradation of light. Gnostic texts remind us of the inner spark. The sages of the desert speak of the silence that reveals the inner workings of the self. Everything points to the same revelation. The passage exists, but it is not to be confused with escape. Returning is not disappearing from the world. It is returning to oneself within the world, with greater wholeness. The angel does not isolate you from life. He returns you to it, but without masks. And when the mask falls, the everyday becomes an altar. Working, caring, listening, being silent, acting. Each gesture aligns with a direction. The journey becomes a way of life. Another precious layer. In tradition, names are invitations. Invoking Raziel is practicing listening that perceives the essential behind the noise. Invoking Cadmiel is persisting on the path when emotion is absent, because fidelity does not depend on euphoria. Invoking Oriel is allowing clarity to reorder choices, goals, affections. This is what we are talking about when we discuss real transformation. There is no glamour, there is cleansing. Small, repeated, coherent decisions. The angel recognizes this behind-the-scenes work. That is why the flaming sword seems less threatening and more discerning. The discernment is loving. It lets through what is whole and asks that what still needs fire remain outside. Now, letting the metaphor resonate with the ground of life, think about the last few weeks. In what moments did you perceive a whisper of wisdom that prevented a fall? Where did you uphold a value even without applause? Where did reality become so clear that doubt, finally, lost its place? These are traces of the cherub in action. Don't expect a flash in the sky. Recognize the lucidity that lands silently and suddenly sets you on your feet. The transition happens like this, internally without fanfare. What changes externally is a consequence. And there is also a little spoken delicacy, humility. Not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that adjusts you to the right size. Without it, Raziel becomes empty curiosity, Cadmiel becomes stubbornness, and Uriel becomes critical harshness. With humility, listening becomes soft, fidelity becomes light, clarity becomes service. It is in this measure that the gate responds. The blade, then, does not cut you, it cuts the excess. The angel does not measure spiritual resumes, but sincerity. Whoever arrives true finds on the other side a garden that, in truth, has always been within. If this ignites something within, it's natural. It's not delirium, it's memory. The memory of when life and soul spoke the same language. Raziel, Cadmiel, and Uriel are names for the same calling. Return with wholeness. Return without haste, but return. And each step you take in that direction reorganizes the landscape. The world doesn't change with a wave of a magic wand. The perspective changes, and with it relationships, work, health, prayer, rest. The journey gains density, and the flaming sword becomes a beacon. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we understand how this presence moves within us, precise keys emerge for the next leg of the journey. Keys that have less to do with effort and more to do with clarity. Before moving on, leave a simple password so we know we're on the same page. Comment below. This makes sense to me. The fall didn't begin the instant our feet touched the dust outside the garden. It began the moment the memory of our origin was replaced by stories of fear. Eden, understood as a state of consciousness, wasn't erased from the universe. It was shrouded within us. It's as if a fog has formed between our gaze and our heart, a film of distractions, guilt, and anxieties that keeps us turned outward. In this silent exchange, the soul becomes accustomed to seeking outside what can only flourish within, and the gate, which has always been within, becomes a distant murmur. It is in this distance that excesses are born. The haste that confuses movement with meaning, the force that confuses control with direction, and the noise that confuses stimulus with truth. Over time, humanity has learned to build entire cities upon this fog. We erect systems, agendas, and identities upon this lack, and we begin to call natural that which has merely become habitual. The busy mind ceases to hear the inner workings of being. Breathing loses depth. The body carries tensions that tell stories the mouth cannot narrate. The fall, then, reveals itself less as a punishment and more as accumulated forgetfulness. The inner gate does not close by celestial mechanisms. It becomes invisible through the saturation of layers that distance us from the axis. And when the axis is lost, any wind seems like direction. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because forgetfulness isn't uniform. It settles in micro-gestures. Every time an old fear drives a decision, the gate fogs up. Every time a small lie is accepted to avoid discomfort, the gate recedes from sight. Every time we prefer anesthesia to presence, the blade of fire, which should illuminate, becomes a threat in our imagination. But when we reverse the gesture, when we face the sensation instead of running away, when we choose honesty even if it hurts, something realigns. It's subtle, but it's real. Consciousness clears, and the entrance shines again. This is the point where transformation ceases to be a slogan and becomes practice. The return to Eden is a change of mindset that alters the internal economy. Attention regains value. Silence becomes a resource again. Decisions cease to be reactive and gain purpose. We call this virtues in ancient language, but in everyday life, it is simply applied integrity. Saying what is necessary, standing by what has been said, correcting what has failed. The hidden truth, that which sacred texts have preserved in symbols, is not a code reserved for the rare. It is a reminder that reality reveals itself to those who look with clarity. And clarity is not perfection. It is commitment to what is. Perhaps that's why so many masters insist on simplicity. The inner gate doesn't respond to theatricality. It responds to presence. Eating mindfully, working with dignity, setting boundaries gently, asking for forgiveness without self-accusation, giving thanks without calculation. All of this restores depth to the spirit. The journey then slows down internally, even when the external agenda remains full. The impact of this choice is immediate. The body disarms unnecessary defenses, the mind reduces redundancies, the soul regains its brilliance. It's not the absence of problems, it's the quality of presence in the face of them. The fall also created caricatures of spirituality, attempts to replace the journey with decoration. These are seductive shortcuts. Beautiful phrases without practice, beliefs that dispense with responsibility, rituals that avoid looking at the wound. The angel before the gate does not despise rites. He simply does not allow them to take the place of truth. The flaming sword cuts through ornaments when they become a curtain. The passage demands substance. Less appearance, more root. When the root takes the lead, the gesture changes. We negotiate less, we sustain more. We exhibit less, we serve more. We react less, we respond better. And here comes a revelation that many avoid because it changes everything. We don't return to escape the world, we return to be fully present in it. Eden as a state is not seclusion. It is lucidity operating in the concrete. It is in the traffic, in caring for your loved ones, in the silence that precedes difficult words, in the work ethic that no one sees. It is the rearranged backstage that makes the public scene gain truth. This is the path to maturity. Faith ceases to be escape and becomes structure. Hope ceases to be waiting and becomes construction. Love ceases to be an idea and becomes a repeated decision. When the memory of Eden begins to reappear, some subtle symptoms announce the turning point. Resentment, which once seemed like fuel, becomes too heavy to bear. Anxiety, which once seemed like normal tension, begins to seem like expensive noise. Comparison, which once provided direction, begins to seem like a lack of meaning. In place of these old habits, a silent space emerges, a clearing. It is in this clearing that the gate reappears. Sometimes as a sudden tranquility, sometimes as a cleansing cry, sometimes as gentle courage. The angel doesn't need to speak loudly. It recognizes itself by the coherence it establishes. Now, shifting perspective without losing the thread, it's important to say, no one crosses alone. Alone here doesn't mean the absence of people. It means the absence of commitment. There are moments when the presence of someone who has lived through the journey ignites shortcuts within us. A sincere book, an honest conversation, an unpretentious prayer, a shared silence. All of this becomes a bridge. Tradition has given names to these bridges, but at their core, they are testimonies of people who traded masks for truth. The testimony doesn't make the journey for you. It only proves that it's possible to walk it. If the fall was forgetfulness, the return is applied remembrance. Remembering who we are is not an exercise in nostalgia. It is a commitment to our origins in the present. That is why small decisions matter so much. They are the continuous writing of this memory. When the spoken word matches the deed, the fiery sword does not wound, it confirms. When thought recognizes emotion without becoming its hostage, the passage widens. When the will aligns with the good we already know, the gate moves closer. And this proximity alters everything. Longer breaths, fairer relationships, cleaner choices. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there is an even more intimate layer of forgetting. The narratives we tell ourselves. Stories of inadequacy, repeated condemnations, slogans of defeat. These narratives cannot withstand the light for long. When consciousness grows, they crack, and through these cracks, Eden breathes. The angel, then, does what he has always done. guards the passage so that no one enters with weapons, masks, or debts of themselves. There is no fee at the gate, there is truth. And truth is always a relief when it arrives. If any of this touched a memory within you, leave a simple sign so I know you're with me on this turning point. Write in the comments, I'm on this journey too. When the soul begins to awaken, it's not a Hollywood flash or a trumpet tearing through the sky. It's a patient awakening, like the sunrise seen from within the heart. First, the light finds a crack. Then, it begins to draw contours on things that were once only shadow. The same scene gains depth, and you realize you haven't become a child again. You've only begun to see again. At that moment, the angel who seemed to block the gate changes expression. It's no longer a stone sentinel, but a living guardian, a presence that accompanies your breath. There's no spectacle, only silent transformation. And as the clarity settles in, a thread of understanding stitches together from within what seemed fragmented. The feeling is one of reunion, not with an idea, but with a reality that has always awaited you. This awakening is less an idea and more a practice. You don't sustain it by accumulating techniques, you sustain it through decisions. These are small, almost invisible decisions that alter the axis of the journey. Sleeping at a time that respects your body, telling the truth gently, acknowledging a mistake before it takes root, remaining silent when words would become noise, speaking when silence would become cowardice. The transformation happens behind the scenes, away from the audience. It is there that the mindset shifts gears and daily life regains direction. It's not perfectionism, it's applied honesty. Little by little, this set of choices opens a passage, and you realize that the gate was never locked. What was there was an old weight strapped to your shoulders. When you release it, the journey responds. When the soul awakens, it doesn't lose its footing, it learns to walk on it. There is no escape from reality, only reconciliation with it. Work remains work, but meaning returns. Caring for loved ones ceases to be a burden and becomes an offering. Routine ceases to be a prison and becomes a ritual. That's why so many people describe awakening as a reunion with the divine without leaving the everyday. As if an old song were playing again and simple things, a glass of water, a hug, the afternoon light on the windowsill, became signs. Presence grows, and with it grows gratitude, the kind that doesn't depend on grandeur to recognize value. It is gratitude that realigns the gaze and alters the impact of the hours. The flaming sword, which many fear, reveals itself as a line of caution. It prevents you from piercing what still needs fire, and that is why some bonds end when you awaken, some habits lose their charm, some dreams lose their mask. It's not that life has become cold, it's that the hidden truth has stopped negotiating. The light does not humiliate old forms, it only invites them to transform. And when we accept this invitation, something yields within, a rigidity that kept the soul armed, a weariness that came from sustaining personas. In its place, a gentle strength appears. It is not euphoria, it is serenity that learns to say yes and no with the same completeness. There are subtle signs that the angel is guiding you. You begin to prefer depth to distraction. Your vision becomes clearer, your listening more refined. Simple revelations emerge, the kind that don't require debate. Drink more water, ask for forgiveness, change an eating habit, review a relationship that diminishes you, finish a pending task. Awakening doesn't detach you from your body, it dignifies it. Because the body is the harp through which the light wants to play. That's why mature spirituality translates into concrete choices. Habits that protect what is valuable, decisions that restore presence. The journey ceases to be fantasy and becomes a path. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the return to the light doesn't happen in a straight line. There are days when everything seems ablaze and clarity accompanies you like a clean wind. On others, a fog visits, and you feel yourself once again on the verge of oblivion. It is on these days that the guardian works hardest. He repeats the same lesson, trust. Trust not as naive optimism, but as fidelity to what you have already seen when the light was clear. Trust sustains your steps when feelings waver and keeps your heart oriented when your mind demands reassurance. It is the virtue that connects vision and perseverance, that weaves revelations into the everyday until it becomes nature. Awakening also heals your relationship with time. Instead of trying to control what will come, You learn to inhabit what is here. This is not passivity, it is presence. Presence creates the kind of action that doesn't waste energy. Clean actions that spring from the center, not from reactivity. The difference is noticeable. What was once rushing becomes rhythm. What was once demanding becomes commitment. What was once fear becomes prudence. And suddenly, you become trustworthy to yourself. When you trust yourself, trusting higher ceases to be theory and becomes natural movement. Anxiety loses ground because the soul begins to breathe again. There's a particularly beautiful moment in this process, when you realize that the angel no longer needs to appear as a figure. It becomes a mode, a way of speaking, of listening, of touching, of stopping, a way of making decisions that honor life, a way of facing conflicts without losing your balance, a way of going through pain without dramatizing or denying it. The sword then becomes an artisan's tool, drawing lines of simplicity in your biography. The extraordinary is hidden in the ordinary, and it is there that you discover the great turning point, the sanctity of simplicity. The house tidied with care, the work done ethically, the conversation that heals, the rest that restores wholeness. Everything becomes a place of light. And yes, there are moments of vertigo. Sometimes an old memory detaches itself, sometimes a fear screams, sometimes a longing visits. Awakening doesn't eliminate humanity. The awakened one is more human. They cry without shame, laugh without cynicism, ask for help without drama, offer silence without escape. They know that the journey is made of tides and that the tide doesn't argue with the moon. Accepting the rhythms is not resignation, it's wisdom. The angel smiles when you learn to rest in the middle of the crossing, because rest is also a step. In the pause, the light organizes the backstage and puts the soul back on the path. An inevitable consequence of this return is reconciliation with one's own history. What seemed like absolute failure reveals itself as a lesson. What seemed like delay reveals itself as preparation. What seemed like loss reveals itself as space. Awakening looks at the past with tenderness and the future with responsibility. It takes us out of the ego's showcase and returns us to an authentic life, in which serving is not about fading away and shining is not about showing off. The shine here is something else. It is coherence. And coherence has a fragrance that souls recognize from afar. It doesn't need advertising. Presence is enough. Keep this image in mind. Imagine that the gate of Eden is a harp of light, and each string is a virtue. Reason, courage, justice, temperance, compassion, fidelity, serene joy. Every time you practice one of them, a string vibrates, and the gate responds with a chord. When several strings vibrate together, the passage echoes. This is not moralizing. It is spiritual acoustics. The angel is the tuner of this harp. He brings your tone closer to the tone of the house. And when the tones meet, you pass through without theatrical effort, because the music carries you. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there is a simple yet demanding secret that breaks down resistance. No one crosses carrying guilt that has already been forgiven by God, but not by themselves. Forgiveness here is both key and door. To forgive is not to forget. It is to decide that the light will have the last word on the memory. This decision creates space where before there was only an echo. And it is in this space that hope settles, not as anxious expectation, but as a posture. Hope is a daily practice of trust, a discipline of the gaze that chooses life even when the horizon is cloudy. From then on, the angel who seemed to block us reveals himself as the guardian of the passage. He was always waiting for us. If something here has ignited a spark, keep it within and proceed serenely. The path is alive, the guardian is present, and the blade continues to point firmly in the same direction. Integrate what you know, honor what you see, act according to who you are. The rest, the light will do. To seal this passage with a password, write in the comments a phrase that summarizes your current state. Return to the light. Perhaps the secret that frightens us most is also the simplest. We were not expelled from the light so much as we distanced ourselves from it through forgetfulness. Eden as a state was not locked from the outside. It was veiled from within, covered by layers of distraction, haste, and inherited fear. Over time, humanity traded the memory of its origin for automatic survival. And in this autopilot mode we called normal what was merely noise. The angel before the gate remained where he always was, not to punish, but to preserve the passage from decay, like someone guarding a spring in the middle of the desert so that the water is not contaminated. It is disconcerting to admit. The distance is not on the map, it is in the gaze. And it is at this point that the narrative shifts from accusation to responsibility. Because responsibility does not accuse, it educates. If you observe the behind-the-scenes aspects of your own history, you see how forgetfulness sets in. First as weariness, then as indifference, and soon as a mentality that calls practical what is merely hardened. The heart hardens, the ear deepens, and what was once a symbol becomes dead letter. We lose the fragrance of signs, the music behind forms, and we begin to collect certainties like someone stacking bricks. Except that hidden truth doesn't like shop windows. It flourishes in the soil of humility. When humility returns, the world doesn't shrink, perception expands. The same sky, the same table, the same hands, and yet everything seems more distinctly alive. The impact is intimate but real. You feel you belong. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because saying we forget isn't about blessing distraction. It's about recognizing the turning point. Forgetfulness has a cure, and the remedy is applied memory. Memory of who we are, not a walking mistake sustained by guilt, but a persistent spark of remembering. When this memory awakens, decisions change in quality. You begin to prefer what sustains the soul to what only feeds the ego. You begin to treat time as a field, not as prey. You begin to ask for lightness not as an escape, but as a consequence of coherence. The angel, then, ceases to seem like a threat and reveals itself as a teacher, a guardian who restores your direction when your step falters. He doesn't replace your path. He reminds you that there is one. There's a silent scene that repeats this revelation every day. You lay your head on the pillow and, before falling asleep, you realize that something within you is broader than the sum of what went right and what went wrong. This vastness is not indifferent, it's compassionate. It's from this that a different gesture springs the following morning. What yesterday demanded drama, today accepts process. What yesterday asked for applause, today seeks integrity. What yesterday functioned out of need, today breathes out of meaning. Transformation doesn't shout, it redraws contours. And when the contours change, the gate, which seemed like a mirage, gains the texture of a real passage. That is why so many ancient texts insist on loving vigilance. Vigilance is not neurosis, it is affection for what is sacred. A soul watched over with affection does not break, it matures. And to mature, here, is to recover the courage to be simple. Simplicity is not poverty of vision, it is richness of focus. Whoever reopens the focus finds the thread of the narrative that has always been passing beneath their feet. This thread calls for choices. Not performative choices, but choices that secretly reorient the journey. To tolerate less what disfigures you, to practice gratitude until it becomes a habit, to speak the truth to yourself when no one is watching. These are small, yet definitive revelations, like open windows in a stuffy house. At some point, the angel whispers what you already suspected. No one expelled you. And this seemingly simple phrase moves mountains. Because if no one expelled me, I don't need to fight with God to return. I need to awaken to myself. The return, then, ceases to be negotiation and becomes consent. Consent with the light, with one's own history, with the need for healing that demands patience, with the correct step that sometimes walks slowly. The guardian in this scenario is not there to say, do not enter, but enter completely. The flaming sword is not a no, it is a yes indeed. It cuts the loose threads of vanity so that nothing binds the heart to the outside. Some ask why, if Eden is so close, it seems so distant. Because forgetfulness is addictive. It offers easy shortcuts, quick opinions, comfortable polarizations, dogmas that don't demand transformation, promises of power without responsibility. Light doesn't make transactions like that. It invites. And the invitation carries a price. To cross one's own shadow without confusing shadow with identity. It's a behind-the-scenes work that doesn't make headlines, but it yields presence. You begin to notice that silence no longer frightens, that patience has a brilliance the world cannot manufacture, that mercy heals wounds that speeches cannot reach. The journey then changes pace, less running outward, more journeying inward. And the angel? He remains. He remains like a beacon when the fog closes in. He remains as a guide when the mind seeks shortcuts. He remains as tenderness when the body asks for rest. On some days, his presence is reminiscent of an old friend. He doesn't intrude, but sustains. On others, it resembles that of a discreet master. He points out the flaw without humiliating. He points out the greatness without becoming vain. The secret that humanity has forgotten is not just there is a gate. It is there is a guardian who recognizes us. We are seen. We are remembered. And this remembrance from above does not infantilize us. It gently makes us responsible. The sacred does not need to punish us. It invites us to grow. Now, turning the stone over without losing the thread, it must be admitted that carrying this secret changes how we look at the world. Beauty becomes pedagogical again. Pain becomes a teacher, not a jailer. Night becomes a womb, not an enemy. Everything participates. Everything composes. This integration returns to life a sense of spiritual authorship. Not to control, but to cooperate. To cooperate with what is already good, with what needs repair, with what awaits courage. From then on, the everyday becomes a portable temple. There is no inappropriate time for the light. There are distractions that promise much and deliver emptiness. When the promise fails, the guardian reappears, not to accuse, but to indicate the ancient path that was never lost. There's a way to test if we're remembering. Peace grows. Not a superficial peace, but one that coexists with work, with obligations, with difficult news, and still sustains the center. This peace is a sign of alignment, and alignment is the practical translation of grace. When this peace becomes home, relationships breathe. Words become clear. Forgiveness ceases to be a painful theory and becomes an act of freedom. The future ceases to be a threat or a fetish and returns to being a field of cultivation. In this field, hope is not positive thinking. It is the discipline of the gaze. A discipline that learns to see the hand from above in small acts of help, in improbable encounters, in intuitions that save our steps. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the final key to this secret has less to do with knowledge and more to do with consent. Consent to your own dignity, to the goodness that already operates within you, to the responsibility of not spoiling what the light is building. Consent to the joy that is possible now, not the joy conditioned by a perfect scenario. Consent to the slowness of maturing. Consent to the courage not to dramatize or deny, but simply to cross over. When this consent takes hold, the angel lowers the sword and the passage is revealed. And when the passage is revealed, you understand. It was never about cold merit, it was about faithful response. Light is not earned, it is embraced. If this portrait of forgetting and remembering touched you deeply, keep it within you like one protects an ember from the wind. Let that ember illuminate your next decisions, the silent backstage of your day, the way you treat yourself when you err, and how you support yourself when you succeed. The angel remains there, patiently reminding you. You know the way. And when you know that you know, the distance will shrink a little more, and the garden that seemed like a legend will smell of morning. To seal this chapter and keep alive the awareness of what we are opening up together, leave a password in the comments. Write, "This makes sense to me." If you've made it this far, take a breath and let this last thought settle in. Perhaps awakening isn't about understanding everything, but about remaining open to the light. If this journey resonated with you, if something within you calmed or clarified while listening, this is the kind of space we cultivate here, a place to think about the invisible with our feet on the ground. So, if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. That way you can continue following these reflections, and together we can keep this conversation alive about consciousness, purpose, and everything that moves between heaven and earth. The button is below, and each new subscription helps this message reach where it needs to reach. Leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." This is our way of knowing that the light of this video has reached you. And if this moment brought you peace, leave a like. Not as an automatic gesture, but as someone who lights another small flame in this circle of understanding that we are building together. There's a video over here that continues this line of thought and delves even deeper into this revelation. Click and join me for the next part of the journey. The light is still speaking.